Hello, friend. Hi, how are you? So, what's happening? Here we are. It's me, Kirsten, and this is the It's Giving Mystical podcast for the month of November. What a funny place we are in. What a moment of acceleration we find ourselves in. Can you feel it? Can you feel the need to counterbalance the incredible movement happening in each of our own lives, but also globally? I'm with you in that. I'm with you in that. And breath is with you in that. So I remind you of the power of your breath to change everything. One breath can really make all the difference. This is actually kind of a long podcast. The messaging around justice really just came like moving through me. There was so much to say. And you'll hear in the podcast like the quality of the energies that we're working with. The quality of justice came through kind of with a sense of urgency and a clarity and a real sense of like the front body, like 2 feet planted on the ground, facing forward. Here I am, for better or worse, and what am I going to do now? And the energy of the moon equally coming through, but like much more dreamy, much more dreamlike, much more meandering. Justice is like a clear ray of light, and justice in the tarot is not about fairness. Justice in the tarot is about clarity, clear sight, and about balancing, and not just balancing individually, but like the great balancing, the great harmonizing and balancing of the world, of the universe. The moon energy is the ebb and flow, right? The coming and going, the darkness and the light, the meandering mama river that travels with this clear ray of justice, and how they dance together, how they reflect with each other, how they learn from each other, how they inform each other. There's a lot happening here. The universe is a vast and strange place that came through so many times, but you are an equally vast and strange creature who has such an impact on this world, on the life you create, on the art you make with what is given to you. That is also really here with us. We live in circumstance. We live in a very real world that is in many ways out of our hands, and we create art and we seek integrity with the choices we make in those circumstances. Both and the serenity prayer, serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom, dude, the wisdom to know the difference. We're going to talk about how that is such a key part of all of this. I send you into the realm of this podcast, into this meandering river of clear light with so much love, with so much compassion, and with a real belief that the things bubbling up, the monsters truly that are bubbling up for our sight, for our understanding, for our ability to work with them, are doing so that we carry less into the next moment, truly taking this gateway in the year for the gift that it is, closing off what is complete and opening our arms to what is next. So much, so much, so much. And above all, so much love to you, and I send you into this realm of justice and the moon with a lot of light in my own heart, and hopefully reflected back in your own heart as well. I believe in you. I believe in us. I believe in us. I really do. So much love, and enjoy every bit of it. I hope it serves you so well. Check you later. Hello, everybody. It's me, Kirsten, and this is the It's Giving Mystical podcast for the month of November, your monthly energy report, channeled message, time with the tarot, and I'm just so happy to be here with you. I have been not feeling good. Have I told you that yet? And I'm so happy to be feeling stronger and clearer and back in my own body. So grateful for my health. We are going to be talking this month about number 11, justice, number 11 for November, the 11th month of 2023, my birthday month. Happy birthday to all you Scorpio cuties out there. And the moon card, which is 18, which is the 7 year of the chariot that we're in, married to the 11 month, brings us to 18, the moon card. So we're going to be talking about justice, which is the card of clear sight, the card of clear sight, and the moon, which is the card of dreams and illusion. How fun, how interesting, how spooky, how seasonally appropriate. I'm excited to talk to you guys about both of these things. Curious to see where it leads us, curious to see what comes through. To remember the month of October, listen, oh wow, right? So much happened. And there was like an acceleration that happened in October, which was really interesting. The message that came through for all of us here was, the need to rest and the need to carve out space for rest in our life, carve out spaciousness in our life, carve out space for us to receive the blessings, like receive the light, the intelligence, the illumination of our ancestors and of the healing gifts of the world, to feel that in our bodies, to feel our ability to integrate that and take that in. And then the Wheel of Fortune, this idea that, there are things that change that are beyond us, that the world keeps changing, life keeps lifing, and new events, new circumstances, new relationships emerge. Duality in October of the need to rest and new things emerging, new information coming into play, might have left us with the realization that it's hard to create spaciousness. It's hard to create pacing in your life. If you start to unwind from the commodification of our energy, the commodification of our gifts that is our modern culture. What are you doing? Are you doing enough? Are you doing it well enough? Are you doing it fast enough? Are you making enough money? Are you spending your time efficiently? Are you creative enough? Are you grateful enough? Are you spiritual enough? Like, fuck you. Like, just the on and on of are you enoughness of our culture. When you start to unwind from that, pull back from that, counterbalance that momentum, and no joke, it is a mighty momentum. When you try to counterbalance that momentum and say, I'm going to try to be with myself a little more patiently, a little more fully. I'm going to try to create more space for my practice, for my breath. Really the simpleness of just creating more space for your breath, in a revolutionary act, if I do say so myself. Creating more space for that, and you notice how quickly life fills in that space. How you really do have to create structure around sacred space. How you have to be vigilant about that. And it doesn't come with a sense of guarding your space. It comes with a sense of reverence for your space, reverence for your energy, reverence for your need to breathe and be embodied and be a creature here who is worthy of care and softness and quiet and rest and proper nurturing, proper nourishment. All of that was activated in October, along with a realization around how precious our bodies are. How fleeting this is, how vulnerable we are. And that came through that 1 week where we talked about the Six of Swords. That was very present, and I can really still feel that energy. Sometimes you are strong and resourced and able to shepherd the other, and sometimes you are the one that needs shepherding. But we don't do any of this alone, and we are incredibly vulnerable. It is a vulnerable, brief, tricky thing to be human. Delicate thing to be human. And some of us were able to witness that on the world stage. Some of us felt that very close to home, very physically, very personally, in a variety of different ways. But there's this sense of my body is so precious and my incarnation is so brief. And the need to create spaciousness around that, the need to hold that in sacred container, sacred witnessing, is not a small thing. Implication of looking around and noticing how much of the world really wants to run that dry, squeeze that dry, disassociate from the sacred quality of a life, whether it's yours or mine or all the other billions on the planet. So there was this call to rest, and then this acceleration as the wheel began to turn, as things began to kind of show up as reality. Either work we've been working on, things that have been kind of dormant for a long time. Like there's this great unmasking happening right now in people's individual lives and on the world stage. And this equally present acceleration of what it means to be human, of what it means to be in relationship, of what it means to be aware and awake in the world. So all of that happened in October, leading us into November. And I'll just use myself as an example. I began November, felt like I was running a marathon. Didn't feel well. My children had very, very real, very material, earthly needs. And I am with them. That's where I want to be. It's how I want to be. It's what I'm in devotion to. It's my priority in life. And it was relentless. There was this relentless pacing to it. I say that to just validate that if you're feeling it. Validate the fact that it feels like the pressure's coming from all directions. What do you do with it when it feels like the pressure's coming from all directions? You appreciate the value and the work you do in the quiet moments that create a little bit of space, that create a little bit of extra rest, a little bit of slower pacing. So when the acceleration is happening, you have energy for it. And I've been getting that message for a long time in my own practice in certain dimensions, like this call to rest. And I am incredibly impatient with it, right? I'm like, okay, I rested. I did it for a week. I did it for a little while. And then like the call will come, no, keep resting, keep resting. There's this way in which we feel like the things that are happening now will happen forever. So when we're resting or there's spaciousness, we're like, oh my God, I'm almost bored. Like, why is there so much spaciousness? Why do I have so much time for rest? Why is it so quiet here? And then when it accelerates, it's like, holy man, what do I do with this? Like, I'm always going to be running at this pace. I'm never going to get space again. Like, I don't know if it's just me. We're very dramatic creatures, and we're very, very impacted by the reality of this moment, very impacted by the necessities of life and the realities of the world. That's going to come up when we kind of slide right now into the November energies. This real appreciation for, yes, free will. Like, yes, you are an active agent in the world. And the world is an enormous, wild, chaotic, creative place. Rachel Pollack, when she talks about the Justice card, she says the universe is vast and strange. Like, the universe is vast and strange. Life is vast and strange. The world is vast and strange. So much is changing. So much is happening. And most of it is incredibly unpredictable. So many players. Like, just picture the globe. Picture the earth for a moment. All of those free agents. All of those active, conscious beings creating and pulsing and desiring and needing and wanting. It's going to create interesting events. The planet itself is a beautiful, magical realm. It's going to create its own events. And so we think about these things. This is what is true. This is what I am dealing with. This is the facts of my life and the facts of the world as they stand. These are the events and the people and the dynamics that I am in reaction to. The Justice card wants you to really see that and feel that. Justice is 11 in the Major Arcana. There are 21 cards in the Major Arcana. The Fool kind of is both 0 and 22. So we say there's 22 cards, but there's actually 21 images. And the Justice card is right in the middle. There's 10 cards before, 10 cards after, and here's the Justice card. It's the fulcrum. It's the balance point. And I want to say right from the get-go, justice in the tarot is not about fairness. Justice in the tarot is not blind justice. Justice in the tarot is about clear vision. It's about, do you see clearly? And that's why I mentioned in the weekly podcast last week the idea of the serenity prayer. I just want to say that again because it's such an important summary of what we're going to be living through in November. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. There are circumstances and events and moments and people and behaviors that you have zero control over. And I would say it's a lot of the world. It's a lot of the world that you have zero control over. The courage to change the things I can, meaning like the fortitude, the strength, the presence, the resourceness to sit and say, okay, there's a lot of crazy shit happening right now. A lot of stuff I have no control over. And yet there's so much I do have control over, so much I can impact. Am I actually attending to that? Do you notice that we spend a lot of time ruminating over the things we can't control versus getting down to the business of handling what is ours, handling what is our business, and then the wisdom to know the difference. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. That's not an easy one. And the wisdom to know the difference. The Justice card is the wisdom to know the difference. It encapsulates this whole energy of there are things that are out of my hands. There is a truth and a vastness and a strangeness to life that I cannot manage, beyond me, beyond my control, way beyond my control. I don't care what you think of the quantum realm. Earthquakes are earthquakes and wars are wars, and things are happening in real time in the world. There are people that are suffering. There are people that are aching. There are people that are dying. And that is just true. And I can't stop that. I can't change that. But I often get so distracted and caught up in that I fail to handle the things that are in front of me. And that's where the real work lies, where the real courage lies. Okay, what is mine? And Justice lines up with the Emperor card. So it's no coincidence that the Emperor card is coming into alignment with this. What is my domain? Back to that key question, right? The Justice card is like, feel the huge world, right? Justice is, if you're really feeling pure justice energy, in this one moment, justice can see all of the timelines. It It can see all of the life and work and moments and events that led to this moment. And it can see all the things that will trail off from this moment. And justice from that place says what is next, what is right, what is clear. So it has this incredibly universal scope in its vision. All of that universal wideness, that vastness. And then justice is also holding in its hands what is yours. Like, what have you done? What are the choices you've made? Choice after choice. And there's no moral judgment here. It's like really important to say justice is not a place of moral judgment. It's not even really a place of forgiveness, and we're going to get to that. But it's this sense of like, okay, you've made choices. The world, life, all happening. And in response to that, you've chosen over and over and over again, each moment, each breath, choice, 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 choice. Those two things come together. There's like this crossroads. This is the world. This is the choices you've made in that world. Here is what is. And now what will you do? Can you tease those apart, and can you stay with your choices, your sight, your behavior, your balancing of who you want to be? What kind of world you want to create? What kind of world you want to live in? Justice is about perspective. It is the marriage of the magician energy. There's the 1 and 1 of 11, which speaks to both magician, number 1, and the high priestess, number 2. And in the actual image on the Rider-Waite card, the justice image itself, there's this feeling of both an echo of the high priestess sitting with the curtain behind her, the 2 pillars, and the echo of the magician with their arm raised to the sky and the other arm pointed down. So there's this duality of the active principle of the magician. I am everything, as above, so below, and as I speak, I create. Deep, deep power of manifestation of creative possibility in the world that the magician represents, the I am energy. And then the high priestess, which is like deep receptivity, just a listening creature, just a listening, quiet intuition of these are the rhythms of the world and I hear them. I don't actually act on them. The high priestess is not active. She's pure receptivity. And the magician is pure activity. And the justice card is holding both of these things in balance. I am both of these things. I am halfway in the major arcana. You have lived a life up into this moment. What have you learned? What will you do now? And there's a sense of detachment with the justice card, meaning not that I don't care and not that it doesn't matter, but there's a sense of detachment in like, who do you want to be? How do you want to be? How have you are the culmination of the choices you have made, of the circumstances you live in, like the necessity of the world that is around you, the necessity of living in the world, and the choices you've made in that world, how you've navigated. That's created this persona. That's created who you are. And that mask, that creation, that persona can control us if we don't detach from it, if we don't step back from it, step to the side and say, okay, look, the world is something. I am a creature who responds to the world that I'm in, and I have made choices accordingly. Am I making choices that add up to who I want to be in the world? Am I marrying the vision of my spirit, my soul, the call of my heart with choices that align to that place? And when we talked about this a while back, at some point when we talked about integrity, who I want to be, who I dream of being, the energy and the gift I want to be to the world, the beauty I want to be in the world. There's one idea of that. And then there's how I'm actually showing up. How far apart or close together are those things? I would say to you that is a measure and a definition of integrity. Am I making choices that align with my highest self? Justice card is not pulling any punches, and it calls you to the table. And why I say there's this element of detachment is important is because justice says it's all right. Something happens and I have feelings about it. It impacts me. All valid. Like, be with that. Be with the way the world is impacting you. Be with the feelings you have about how it impacts you. Be with the thoughts you have about the feelings, about the impact. Like, be with all of it. Yes and yes and yes. All of it is here. Justice is here with all of it. But you don't necessarily react from that. You detach enough to say, yes, I witness you. I am with you. The truth of this, the truth of what this means to you, how it impacts you, how it makes you feel. And I don't want to choose in that stew. I don't want to choose from that place, because then I'm just perpetuating more of it. Versus if I feel all the truth of it, this whatever this feels, good or bad, I detach from it and I say, I want more of this. I want to choose more of this, or I want to not have as much of this. I don't want this in my life. Well, then what choices are you making to navigate? It goes back to what we talked about in June for Gemini season. There are no good choices. There are no bad choices. There's just the learning you get as you make each choice. And justice is kind of that, like, call to the table. Let's take a look. Come to the table. Bring to me your life. Bring to me your circumstances. And let's look. Let's evaluate. The choices you've made up until this point, are they working for you? The way you react and dance with and contribute to the world, is it working for you? And if not, what do we want to choose differently? And that's that clear sight. An example would be if someone comes to you with anger, your immediate reaction, completely valid, might be anger back. You're going to rise up to meet that anger. There's going to be a reflection of that anger. You don't necessarily want to choose from that place. That's we talked about it as reactivity. It's a reactivity. There's no pause. There's no breath. There's no clear sight. There's no wisdom. There's no detachment. There's just, you're angry. Well, I'm angry. You're hurt. Well, I'm hurt. Versus, let's pull back and say, I feel your anger. It makes me angry too. It makes me feel all these things and think all these things and trigger all these things. And how do I want to be? How do I want to be? And that's just that. It's like we've talked about this too. It's just that one breath. That one pause. I just want to give myself a little bit of space around this. And I can't say it enough. The immediacy of our nervous system, the immediacy of the things that trigger us, the immediacy of our reactivity is immediate for a reason. I say it's immediate because it is. It's like there's no pause. There's no calculation. There's no consciousness. There's no clarity. We just respond. The ability to notice the desire to respond, to pause and take a full breath in that moment, that is a place of miracles. No joke. I could say it and it can sound like that's so cute. And I could tell you that if you were able to insert a breath in every one of those moments, you would change your life. And the Justice card is asking us for liberation. It's calling us towards liberation. It's like, come to the table. Let's look at what's been. Let's look at the world around you. Let's look at the things we cannot change. Look at the things we have the possibility of changing. Let's figure out which is which. And then let's figure out what is going to call you towards having more choice in your life, making clearer choices, making choices that are more in alignment with what you really seek, who you really are. Justice is a card that can, when it comes up in a reading, it can be like kind of boring almost, like, oh, justice, whatever, like, great. But again, justice is not about fairness. Justice doesn't fucking care if it's fair. Justice is not asking you and not trying to convince you that life is fair. Justice is saying to you, life is life and you are here with it. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? How much of your time are you going to spend spinning around the things that are not yours, the things that are vast and strange? And how much time are you going to spend actually being courageous and willing to tackle what is yours to tackle? Our lives are made up of this series of choices, and that's it. And you come to this point where you can have clear vision and step back and look at it and say, all right, are these choices aligning with the life I want? Are they aware of how precious this moment is? It's not a small call. It's not a small call. And yet it is an incredibly invigorating one. You can hear it in my voice, right? Channeling this message. I feel an urgency and an intensity that I don't normally feel when I'm reading the tarot. But justice does feel in this moment like a call up. And, anyone who's heard me talk about justice knows that I love the James Baldwin quote, justice is love taken to the street. But that's what we're talking about. Justice is that cultivation of, I am worthy. I have something to say. I have something to offer. And when I look at that clearly, I can't help but be called up to, what am I doing with my life? How am I serving? How am I showing up? How am I in alignment? And again, for my freedom, but for the freedom of all beings, to step out of the circus and the chaos as much as possible to say, is this what I even want? Is this life what I even want? Is this way of dialoguing even what I want? Is this way of communicating and acting and behaving and being? Do I even want any of this? Does this even work for me anymore? That's wisdom, dude. That's wisdom. Justice showing up asks us to really begin to understand the difference between action and doing things. Because there's a huge difference between action and movement. Like, action is, I am clear-eyed. I am responsible for who I am. I'm responsible for how I am, and I choose accordingly. Doing things is just keeping yourself busy. It's just reacting and responding constantly. And as I say that, I mean the exhaustion that comes. And I would imagine that in October, what we just talked about, there was like a realization. What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my precious energy? Justice is like, let's talk about it. Let's get it on the table. Let's lay it all out and let's get this shit clear. Because wisdom does not arise spontaneously. Wisdom comes from clarity. It comes from courage. It comes from the willingness to sit and look at what you've created so far. Because free will, crazy universe, vast and strange, you have still created something here now. What have you created, and is it what you want? Is it what you want? Is it what is going to satisfy your soul at the end of the day, at the end of your days? Justice is like, here is your life. Here is your life in this vast and strange universe. What will you do now? Justice is asking us to grow up and not just understand what's right, understand what is in alignment, but to act on that. This is not black and white thinking. This is not moral judgment. This is a question of everything you do adds up to your life. What are the choices you're making, and are you choosing with clear eyes? So at the end of the day, justice is really calling for a moment of assessment, to assess where you are and how you've gotten here. And it might be something very specific that's up for assessment, or it might be a broader sense. It might also be, you might see that in your community or more globally. Like, how did we get here? How did we get here? And the assessment, even though justice is not really concerned with morality and not really concerned with forgiveness, that assessment might call up the need to forgive others, but even more impactfully to forgive yourself. If I look back and I assess how I've gotten to where I am, either in a specific place or in a more general place, I might not like some of the choices I've made. I might not like some of the behaviors, the decisions that brought me here, the reactions that brought me here. And justice is, again, like, put it on the table. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for what you might value as a good choice or a bad choice, a mistake or a success, and just be with the fact of it, like the neutrality of it, the balanced, clear sight of it. This is how I've gotten where I've gotten, and what have I learned from that? What will I choose now moving forward? When you forgive yourself for the mistakes, and I say that in air quotes, of the past, again, it's a liberating of, okay, I'm here now. I'm here in this place now, and I know what I want. I know where I'm headed. I know what's right. I have learned a lot about, and when I say right, I'm not thinking right, wrong. I mean right like balance, like right living, right vision, like a balanced way of seeing things, a broader scope upon which I see my own lifeline. I see my choices adding up to one, adding up to this moment, adding up to here and now. And I forgive myself for the parts of that I might not like, knowing that I'm releasing more energy to be more present as I choose moving forward, because the choices I make now are determining the future self that I become. And I will be called to evaluate that again. I will be called to the table again. And when you're called up for review, what do you want to have learned? What wisdom do you want to have cultivated? What clarity and righteousness in the cleanest, most neutral way do you want to bring to the table as the wheel turns? It reminds me of the energy that we felt with the 10 of Wands that week. I think it was the second to last week in October, or the last full week in October. Justice will say to you, like, what are you carrying into the future versus what are you ready to put down? It reminds me of the energy of Yom Kippur, right? The Day of Atonement. I release what is no longer mine, knowing that so much of my work is to put it down, forgive myself, forgive others, forgive what didn't work. Like, forgive myself the choices that I might have made differently had I known better. And then I move to the future with like this clear potential. That's the beauty of it. Like, justice is like this moment. What are you going to do with this moment? Don't carry extra baggage into it. Like, make peace with what was and then pivot into the freshness, into the possibility, into the creative potential of this next moment, this next place, this next time, this next cycle. I'm kind of going on and on about justice, but it feels really important for this moment. And the last thing I'll say about justice is that inevitably when justice is pictured in a tarot deck, it is facing you head on. Like, there is a directness and a immediacy and a presence to the justice card always. Like, here I stand, 2 feet on the ground. Look at me. Let me look at you. Let us be clear together. Let us say what is true. Let us say what is true. And let us not waste time on confusion or waste time on description or waste time on judgment. Let's just say what's true and balance as best we can and ride the balance as best we can between the things we cannot control and the things that are ours to master. Ability to hold two truths, two opposing energies in your mind and your body at the same time. The world is vast and strange, and I am an incredibly powerful being within it. To hold those two ideas together and to move clearly and powerfully from that place. Justice, calling us up, calling us out. But I like it, and it feels good, and it feels important, and it feels just of the moment. It feels like there is no time to waste in the swirls of what was or the swirls of how it could be different. It is what it is, and we are here now, and what are we going to do with the time we are given? What are we going to do with this precious moment that is ours? It is ours to make art from. Which brings us to the energy of the moon, the other card that is with us this month. Kind of the complete opposite. In the tarot, figures in the moon card are never seen full on. They're always in profile or they're back. And the Hebrew letter that represents the moon card, it means the back of the head. So there's a whole mystery school of the moon card. It comes between the ancient gifted illumination of the star card and the beautiful brilliance and warmth of the sun card. The moon sits between these two points of light, and the moon is the reflection of the light, integration, the soaking in of the light. What do? We have this light, and now it's soaking into our being. What happened? And the moon card is a little bit of a recognition and a realization that we will never see it all. We will never see clearly. So justice is like, see it clearly. And the moon card's like, I mean, who are you kidding? Who are you kidding? The back of the head, the back of the heart, the back body is just a brilliant metaphor for this. Like, we are walking around present to the world, facing the world, like justice, like feet on the ground. Here I am. Do you see me? And there's this whole thing happening behind us that we are completely blind to. And you can call it shadow. You can call it whatever you want. It's just the back body. We don't see it. It practically doesn't exist. When you do meditative work and you bring people's energy you say, bring to the back of your heart, bring to your back body, bring to your spine, bring to your wings, bring to the back of your head. People are like, I never even thought about that. I forgot completely that I have a back body. It's so true. And that's the energy of the moon card. Like, all this brilliant light, all this desire for clarity, all this courage and heart and fire. And yet we live in a world where we are blind to so much of what's going on. The back of the head is also the place of the most ancient parts of our brain. Not just the savage beast within us, but the like reptilian brain. The part, the crustacean brain, the brain that is just basically a crayfish. And I think it's the medulla. I hope I'm saying that right. One of the oldest parts of the brain. It never sleeps. It's the part of our brain witnessing us when we sleep, witnessing us when we dream. Think about how mysterious this is. Imagine yourself in the middle of the night. The middle of the night, the darkness, when there's no, the place where it's darkest, where there's no light, the back of our body, the part of us that dreams, that is so mysterious. These are all things, lunacy, nightmares, all this stuff comes up in the moon card. So it is a place of illusion, confusion, fear. That's part of it. So we're going to talk about what else it is, right? But all of that is bubbling up while justice is standing here facing the sun being like, I will see clearly. There's just going to be this opposition in the month of November. And you can feel it like what I was just saying about Yom Kippur, right? There's so many beautiful holidays celebrating the cycle of life, the turning of the wheel in October, November. There's equally so many holidays celebrating the other realms, celebrating the shadows, celebrating the fear, the inherent like confusion and almost panic that comes with the darkening days. We are not empowered in the darkness. We are not creatures that live in the night. We are daytime creatures. We're like fed by the sun, we're powered by the sun. And in the dark, we are disabled. We're a little bit blind, a lot blind. We're not cats. We're not nocturnal beasts. The moon card comes up to kind of take us on this journey of humility around the things we don't see. Humility around the fact that even with our best intentions, even with our clearest sight, there will always be things that remain blind to us, that we just don't see clearly. And we are prime example of that. I say that all the time in circle, right? Like people can go around and when they're sharing in circle, people can be like, well, that person should just do that. And then they'll be in good shape. And if they just read that book and they just did that practice and they just got rid of that, then that would be great. Well, for sure, it's easy for you to look at someone else and be like, if you just did this, you'd be good. Bring that medicine to yourself. Bring that point of view to yourself. It is very hard. We create this beautiful tableau of mystery and story and projection and narration and protection. And we think that's reality. And it's just a beautiful net we've woven. I don't know how else to say that. Like that's the way it appears to me in my mind's eye. We are doing our best to see clearly. We're doing our best to burn away the confusion, to bring back the light, to illuminate, but we're never going to do it perfectly. And that's just kind of fact. The moon asks us to understand and have humility around the parts of us that are mysterious, that will always remain mysterious, and to surrender into that in a way, because the moon card is like the high priestess, this place of deep receptivity. What they say is that the star illuminates, right? The star heals. And in that healing, nightmares bubble up, fears bubble up. So it's like you picture yourself taking in the light of the star in October, like infusing your being with light, even the parts you don't see. And as the light fills those spaces, the things that reside there, the mysterious confusion, fear, it bubbles up. And that's what some people would say that's where your dreams come from, like the unconscious, right? The parts of us that I am blind to, the unconscious parts of me get illuminated and dreams bubble up, and that's how my mind or my being processes that energy. Maybe, but the point is that the light comes up, it moves things around, and you're left to handle that. You're left to be with the confusing parts, the less clear parts of, I wonder why I did what I did. I wonder why these are the choices I've made. I wonder why even when I know better, I still continue to make those choices. This is where the humility, the compassion, the forgiveness comes in. What I'll say about the moon in general is that as much as it's only reflecting light, it's only processing light from other astral entities, it is calming us. So there's something about the moonlight, right, that just kind of calms us, that bathes us. You can think about bathing in the moonlight, right? There's a way in which that light has a diffuse quality to it, and it's right and proper too. It has its own element of healing as well. The moon card, when it comes up, says, there is illusion, so maybe take it all a little less seriously. Maybe have a little more humility. Maybe be a little more curious about the things you don't know, the things you don't see. Maybe be a little more patient with other people's pain, other people's unconscious monsters, other people's, the things that haunt other people. Maybe there's something about to have patience with the monsters, for yourself and for others. And justice probably wouldn't do that. Justice would probably be like, get your shit together. And the moon's like, who really has their stuff together? We're all just one click away from wild animals, or one click away from the angels, right? We're again hovering in this funny place between angel and animal. And we're just kind of like in this funny in-between, this funny liminal space, which again is exactly where the moon hangs out, the definition of liminal space. Another thing that comes through with the moon, which is important to bring up here, is that for me, the way that the star energy is the healing light of our male lineage, of our masculine ancestors. The moon is the healing light of our feminine ancestors, of our feminine lineage. There's a way in which the energy of the moon comes to you in symbolism, it comes to you in mythology, it comes to you in storytelling, it comes to you in touch, it comes to you in these not nonverbal, non-linear, I guess. It comes to you in these non-linear movement. And there's something about dancing with that energy, about music, about non-linear movement through that space that actually offers you incredible healing. And the moon will counterweight what the justice card is saying, because the moon will say, like, justice will be like, what's your line? Like, you've arrived here, look at it clearly, what are you going to do next? And the moon would be like a little bit more forgiveness around that. Well, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to move this way, and I'm going to sway that way, and I'm going to dream about this, and I'm going to guess about this, and that's okay too. And so you can just feel, like as I'm describing that, can you feel the way that justice is like this clear beam of light, and the moon is like this aching river, and they're kind of winding, the moon is kind of winding next to this clear beam of light of justice, and kind of informing it and touching it and moving into darkness and moving back into the light and moving back into the darkness. What we might consciously want, know, see, understand, and what is also true about being human, about being incarnate. The moon card is going to activate fear. That's just true. So we want to be present with that. We want to have perspective around that. We want to hold ourselves, again, like build container around that, so that we have the resources we need to breathe through that, breathe with that fear. The moon is a beautiful, beautiful energy. It really is the place of fantasy and dreams and moonlight and nighttime and dreamy, creative spaces. I would say that because Saturn has just gone direct in Pisces, the moon card takes on a little bit of an added rigor, which means that activation around psychic energy, activation around non-visual sight, activation around perceptive ability might be activated, might be clicking into place for some people. So you might find yourself with an ability to see or feel beyond what you've been able to see or feel in the past in many, many dimensions. And that's cool, like cool. Pisces and Saturn gives me that energy of this dreamy, how does this dreamy energy become something we work with, become a tool for us? How does this dreamy energy soften that beam of light that justice is? How does it make it more human, make it more touchable, tangible, make it more compassionate? So the moon card is going to bring that element of forgiveness and curiosity and even not knowing, like even, justice is like, what do you know now? And then moon card's like, I don't even know what I don't know. And so you just feel, again, like I'll say it one more time, the energy in November is going to be asking us to hold these very different energies in our bodies at the same time, in our minds at the same time, in our fields at the same time, in the world at the same time. What do you do with that? Right? So I just said to you, look at how these two things are going to be kind of activating you, both front body and back body, and like what's happening. You have patience. Hey, did I say that? I totally said that, but it's true. You have patience with reality. You detach from this. So this is the detachment I was talking about with justice. You're going to be activated. You're going to be triggered. Fear, nightmares, like scary things are going to speak to you. The monsters are going to kind of come up to be seen. And I want you just to stay with that. Just stay with that and breathe through it and have the tools you need to stay with that and detach from it. Okay, this thing is happening. It terrifies me. It makes me think this. It makes me feel this. It makes me want to do this. Again, remembering the difference between doing and action. Like I'm just doing to do versus I'm taking clear action. Very, very different behavior. Very, very different intention. Very, very different impact. All these monsters come up. Maybe one monster comes up. Maybe it's a couple little baby monsters. Maybe it's a larger global monster. It comes up and I just feel all the things that are true for me. And I breathe into that. And then I call on that clear light of justice. Okay, these are the things that scare me. These are the things that are coming up for me. They come up for me for good reason. There's a reason why these are the things in particular that activate me. And I call on the clear light of justice to illuminate, okay, but what do I want to do now? How do I want to be now? I have made a series of choices in this vast, strange universe to arrive in this place. There are still things I do not understand, I do not know, I do not see. Some of those things are getting called up into the light, getting bubbled up into the light this month. I'm going to sit with that, feel everything that's true for me, get activated, and like honor what that means to you, how real that feels to you. And then step back and say, okay, these things are somehow tangled into the choices I've made. What do I want to do now? How do I want to be now? What is the clear light of justice? What is this balancing, this rebalancing, this clarity around action? What does it mean for what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I've done in the past, and what I want to do now? And that's it. And that, it sounds like, okay, great, cool. It's not so easy in the moment because this energy is so, it just feels intense. It feels like important. It feels like of the moment. Because it's like that, you just are going to be rewarded for, Sometimes I say things and I'm like, who is even talking here? You're just going to be rewarded. You're just going to be supported by the universe in that. You don't get the clear light of justice pulling against the confusing darkness of the night for no reason. There's something that's bubbling up, something that wants to get clarified, and something that wants to say, it hasn't worked. The way I've done this in the past hasn't worked. Can you help me find a new way? And when I pulled the supporting cards, there's just a lot of blessing around, can you help me find a new way? Can you help me do this in a new way? Can you help me see clearly so I don't get distracted by the shadows and the nightmares and the things I don't know and the things I can't see? Can you help me stay on mission? Can you help me stay on track? There's a lot of support for that. You have a lot of community around that. And I'll say this, as I've said before, you're hearing me talk about this and you might be like, what is she talking about? Maybe you checked out. This is so long, so maybe you've checked out 15, 20 minutes ago. I don't know. But if you're listening to me say this and it's resonating, you might be like, yeah, she's speaking to me. I want you to know that every person I know who listens to this thinks I'm speaking to them. So like, that's just us. And we're all like, yeah, I feel this. There's truth here. And if every other person on the planet, like I really want you to think about the scale of that, is looking at their life, looking at the circumstance they find themselves in, evaluating on some level the choices they've made to arrive here, at the same time feeling that kind of the light, that things that got illuminated in October, bubbling up the old monsters that maybe had been buried, that maybe have never even been seen, and they're being called up for processing, called up for witnessing. And then everyone in some sense is feeling like, do I want to do this the way I've always done it, or do I want to do this in a new way? And if all of us are making those changes and all of us are having even just like a micro movement in that direction, that's how we really kind of like impact the rhythms of the world. That's how we call up a clearer, stronger, more active, more impactful version of ourselves. Justice is about balance, and I'm not just saying you balancing in your world. I'm talking about the right balance of the earth. I'm talking about the right balance of humanity. I'm talking about the ecosystem and the web and the ways that is out of balance, the way that humanity is out of balance, and the calling up of the things we need to call up to process, understand, and choose differently so that we can be more in balance with the earth, be more in balance with each other, be more in balance in our homes, our hearts, and in the wider world. Okay, preach. There's a lot of support for you in the community. The cards that came up with the village, your soul family. Life is bringing these choices to you for a reason, that you are held by the Great Mother. And that is true. Again, the last thing I'll say about the moon card, about these cards in general, is that there is a way in which mother energy is with us. The moon is the Great Mother. The moon is the like great cleansing out, right? Like think about the menstruation cycle, like the cleansing out, the filling of space, the emptying of space, the filling of space, the emptying of space, in an effort to process, to integrate, to create life. There's like nothing wasted in that. Feel the arms of the Great Mother around you in this. Feel the energy of our Earth Mother in this. And that the things that are bubbling up, let them bubble up. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The monsters that come up are really your allies. Like it's this idea of if you could turn on the light, you would recognize them as the friends they are, as the very young energy it is. Like, you're all right. It's not easy to be human. It's not easy to think about being human. And yet it is a miraculous short, brief moment. That has been coming up a lot for me in my own work with people and my work with the Akasha and my own shamanic practice. This is so brief. Like, our time here is so brief. If you've ever talked to the stones or the trees, they will tell you so. Our time is brief. Enjoy it. What do you need to do to liberate energy so you can be more present here now and not waste a second of this beautiful, beautiful choice you made to come here and try out the human game? That's a lot. That was really long. Sorry. I hope it's helpful. I hope I said something that spoke to you, that inspired you, that will stay with you for this month ahead. The Great Mother is with all of us, and life is here. Life is here, and there are no mistakes. And we are constantly learning and evolving and harmonizing and rebalancing. And that is all good, and that is all right, and that is okay. Number 11, it's fast moving. It's a shoot. It's a channel. We will pass through this month very, very quickly. We always do, but this month in particular, time is going to expand and contract in the way of the middle of the night, in the way of the light of the moon. Linear time is going to expand and contract. Quantum time, we are moving very quickly. We are in a profound accelerator, and that is going to be the energy that is with us in November. Take good care of yourself, take good care of each other, and I will drop an episode with your individual tarot scopes probably tomorrow morning. Just know I send love, I send light, and so does the tarot. May peace be with you, and may peace be with us all in this incredibly important time that we're in. Aho. Amen. Take care. Bye. It's giving everything is sacred. It's giving art. It's giving light you up and turn you on and set you free. It's giving curiosity. It's giving freedom. It's giving love. It's giving you are more magical and powerful than you can comprehend. It's giving, I don't know what's happening, but I am so here for it. It's giving you are pure potential. It's giving mystical.